where you scream to watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi, and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson. War for the Planet of the Apes is the third film in this latest installment of the film series that is actually tied directly to the original Planet of the Apes movies starting in the late 1960s. They're all part of the same universe or canon, and the only film that's excluded from all of that is Tim Burton's reboot from 2001. So that one is considered discarded, and these are all of a piece. So these three films are Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and now this one, War for the Planet of the Apes, form a prequel trilogy leading up to the 1968 original.
Do they look like just apes to you?
He saved our lives.
He was remarkable.
Apes together! Strong!
Jim Flanagan has joined me to hear from me about War for the Planet of the Apes because he particularly likes the first two films, as do I. Hi, Jim.
Hey. Now, disclosure, I haven't seen War for Planet of the Apes yet, but that doesn't matter. We can cover this off.
I won't spoil it.
Yep, good.
The reason I wanted to chat to you about this one is because you and I, on this show, on Skippy TV, on Watch This, reviewed the movie The Duel with Woody Harrelson.
Yep.
Now, very few people have probably seen The Duel, straight to DVD kind of movie, $10 million American film directed by an Australian, starring Liam Hemsworth as the good guy in a Western, and Woody Harrelson as the bad guy. So Woody Harrelson in that film played essentially, and we both agreed on this, a version of Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now.
I agree.
Deliberately with the bald head. He even did all these movements that copied Brando's portrayal of Kurtz.
Even with the eye makeup.
Even with the eye makeup and even patting the water on the bald head, all of this. It was obvious that it was an homage to Colonel Kurtz.
Yep, agreed.
Again, in this film, the Woody Harrelson character is directly an homage to Colonel Kurtz. He's got the bald head. You see him shaving the head, and there are lots of other shots, including him emerge from the shadows, including him all mudded up with the eye makeup, where he looks just like Colonel Kurtz.
And he's the nasty, isn't he?
Well, not only that, he's named the Colonel, and the plot...
Well, that's overt.
And the plot of this film is Caesar and a small group, Caesar is that main ape, played by Andy Serkis, Caesar and a bunch of other apes go on this excursion, essentially upriver. There's not actually a river, but they're going north from California up into Oregon.
So it's Heart of Darkness.
And they arrive at this compound led by this cult-like leader called the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, doing Colonel Kurtz.
Wow.
And then at one point, while they're in the compound, they find some graffiti on the wall that says, Ape Apocalypse Now.
You're kidding.
So this is an uncredited remake of Apocalypse Now.
Jesus. Okay. All right. Interesting. Right. So overtly referencing Heart of Darkness.
Overtly referencing
and
Apocalypse
Marlon
Now.
Brando and Colonel Kurtz.
Overtly. They don't even hide it. To the point where I'm thinking, like, I mean, it's a good movie, don't get me wrong. But I have to say, like, I wonder, you know, at what point does reference and homage spill into rip-off, uncredited rip-off? Because the story beats are all there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I really enjoyed the first two, but my issues with them, and I haven't seen the third one, but I would suggest it's going to be similar, is that, again, these are effectively reimaginings of classic science fiction literature and cinema from an earlier generation that is intensely rich with thematic philosophical content. You know, the original Planet of the Apes is all about how humans treat all other species, how we incarcerate them, how we vilify them, etc., etc. And whilst I think that's there to a point in these new films, it's not nearly as prevalent. And these are, I would argue anyway, more, you know, largely really, really entertaining action thrillers.
This is where you'll be surprised.
With a sprinkling, right, okay.
This is where you'll be surprised. The third one is not that.
Excellent.
Yeah, like, I suppose...
So they really bring that home in this one.
Yeah, this one is super serious. It's very long. It's 2.5 hours long.
Wow.
There is very little action and there's a lot of philosophy and a lot of character moments.
Right,
The bulk of the film, I would suggest, is extreme close-ups of Caesar and other apes talking.
Yeah.
Most of them have learned language. Some of them still sign, so talking as it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are brilliant set pieces of
Yeah.
action.
So
Don't
I've
get me
heard.
wrong.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a battle at the beginning that's
Okay.
incredible.
But they really ramped
essentially,
that up.
It's really ramped
Good.
up. It is
I'm
super
glad to
serious.
hear that.
And as
Okay.
such, it is surprising and refreshing as a big Hollywood studio product that is designed to make a lot of money.
And to
Because it
entertain.
is so adult in its
Right.
way. It is serious.
And in
it
its
is
content.
bleak. It
Okay.
is, you know, it is elegiac.
And this is really positioned as the last bridging film before the action of the original.
They'll make another one though.
Charlton,
because
of course they
I think
will.
it's made enough money
Yeah.
that they'll make another one. But yes, it is.
Right,
It's meant
okay.
to feel like a conclusive part of this trilogy. So this stage of the filmmaking.
Before Charlton Heston turns
Yeah,
up.
Before Charlton Heston turns
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And at the end, there's kind of a sort of just a tiny little like cinematic nod to that might be what's coming next, etc.
yeah.
There are Easter eggs throughout.
Yeah.
It is very properly tied to it
Yeah.
in terms of the names and the mythology. That's all fine.
Yeah.
I suspect, or no, I'm going to say that this trilogy now is as brilliant in its way
Mm-hmm.
as the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the original Star Wars trilogy. I think the three films have an
Goodness me.
integrity about them that makes them serious pieces of, you know, action filmmaking.
Okay.
And I think if you saw all three of them,
Yep.
you'd be really impressed with the progression.
Well,
how
this
you've
is-
taken a single sort of ape in a lab through like the apes getting together and to
Yep.
this one, which is this sort of bleak meditation on existence.
Well, this is interesting, and I think it's actually useful that we're having this discussion with me having only seen 2 of the 3 and you seen 3 of the 3, because I would absolutely not agree with that, having only seen the first 2. I certainly
really?
think that they incrementally increase the thematic, original, philosophical content of Planet of the Apes in the second installment, but not really to the extent that I would still like it to be there. So I await with interest how they
you'll like
ramp
it.
that
It's
up.
good.
Okay.
What's interesting about it is too slow and too ponderous
Yeah.
and too full of itself. It's too self-serious
Yeah, sure.
for your average viewer.
Right.
But I think for anyone who loves the first 2,
Yeah.
they deserve this.
Right.
In other words, it's earned its own ambition. It's earned its own, you know, presumption. It's
Yeah.
earned its own arrogance because it is not really for someone dipping their toe in.
Right,
It is
okay.
a deliberate, big, long,
Yeah.
you want it, you get it
Yeah.
conclusion to a trilogy that takes itself seriously.
Yes, and well, I'm interested as well because it's doing great business since it opened.
Yeah, it's
a
still
week
not the
ago,
kind of
and
business that Avengers movies do.
No.
Not the kind of business even that I think Get Out has done, but it's doing well.
The other thing that I say that that I find interesting with the first 2 was that I recently just through chance rewatched the original.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
first of
so
these
Rise
three.
of the
Rise
Planet of the
of
Apes
yep, the James Franco
with James
one.
Franco.
Yes, and what struck me in that was how dated, even 7 or so years after the event, the CGI Andy Serkis treatment looks. It's very good,
Yeah.
but compared to what we now have on offer, it's come a really long way really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And I was distracted regularly by the lack of facial expression that I now
Wow.
expect in a film
Because, of
like
course,
that.
at the time we thought it was incredible.
Exactly.
Then we all thought Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was incredible. Now this one's even more incredible.
Yeah.
As I say, it's so incredible that it allows these long scenes in ultra close-up. And I'm sure if you watched all 3 of them in a marathon, you'd see that progression, wouldn't you?
Yes,
You'd see
yeah.
the special effects getting better.
I think one of the things that these films do very well is really nail down the myriad ape characters.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh, yeah.
and they've
And
very
it helps
quickly.
by the fact that there are different types of ape. There are
That's
orangutans, there are, I don't know, there are the bigger ones, the smaller ones, the
very
monkeys, the chimpanzees, the...
Absolutely, and I'm sure this is the case in the third one. It's set its stalls out very eloquently and quickly, I think, in the first and second films, and especially the second film, where you have this wide variety and array of ape characters, and it's immediately apparent that these apes are positioned as people. Some of them are very good, some of them are very bad,
Yeah.
and there's everything in between.
Yeah.
And so the philosophical suggestion there is very, very simple and powerful.
And that plays out in this one too, especially with the very complex character of Caesar,
Yes.
who becomes very flawed in this one.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? So this is how I rate the entire trilogy now in comparison to Lord of the Rings and the first three Star Wars. Well, no, I'm not going to rate them against each other. What I'm going to do is draw this similarity between the three.
Yeah.
Across the board, as far as I'm concerned, with these three trilogies, the first one is the fun, light one. The second one is the best one with the most dark action. And the third one is kind of a bit too long, a bit too baggy, but is designed to be something serious and fun and heavy.
A thoughtful piece of grown-up cinema.
Thoughtful piece of grown-up cinema for the fans.
See, I would personally, if I was going to compare certainly the first two to another cinematic series, I wouldn't compare it to Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars trilogy, which to me are more populist, escapist pieces of cinema, and I mean that with no disrespect to George Lucas.
But you're right. This isn't populist in the same way.
Well, I actually think it's more comparable to Romero's trilogy in that these are three films that are ostensibly at least dealing with very provocative, serious, wide-ranging, philosophical. Meta-human issues, more so than Star Wars, which is a pure space opera trilogy. I know that Lord of the Rings and Mr. Tolkien was writing this grandiose, post-World War I philosophical, arguably reflection piece, but I still think it functions best as kind of high fantasy.
And in a way that's interesting about the production too, because unlike the Lord of the Rings films, which were essentially filmed as one film, but like Romero's Living Dead films, these three start relatively small, go to high-end medium, and now this film costs like $200 million. So they do have this massive progression in terms of production value.
No, absolutely. But no, I certainly think, and if the third film is what you say it is, we should be comparing it more to a trilogy like Romero's Dead trilogy, I think.
Well, check it out. Worth seeing. But I would in no way recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen the first. Because if you haven't seen the first, you'd be amazed at how slow it is, how willing to take its time it is. A lot of this film it's almost like Werner Herzog, it's going slowly through these snow. It's like Apocalypse Now. It follows the plot of Apocalypse Now.
Which is definitely not an action film.
No, exactly.
You're him. You're Caesar. We've been searching for you for so long.
I did not start this war. I fight only to protect apes.
You've been watching Watch This with Jim Flanagan and CJ Johnson.